Test, 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 test. Charles, we're going. Okay, hey everybody, can I have your attention, please? Test, test. Can you hear me? Perfect. So we're getting ready to start. Quick question: raise your hand if you do not have a mat, and if you have cups. No, don't raise it if you have a mat, Mark. If you don't, if you do not have a tasting mat or cups, Tressa, we'll take some. I need some here for me because I'm going to taste while we talk. The ladies, so this table, anybody else? Raise your hand high. Danielle, you need one? Haley, raise your hand real high and she'll come over and let's get them for the whole table. Everybody having a good night? All right, let's test. Alex, Captain, are you there? Alex, what is going on?
I think I'm here. How's everybody doing?
All right, it's hard to hear you, Alex. Speak up real loud.
What's going on, everybody?
There you go. You're doing a little bit better.
All right. You know, we're kind of loud down here in Arkansas.
How's everything in Arkansas?
It's all right. Football
It's
is
all
a
right.
different story, but
It's all
everything
right,
else is
he
good.
said. All right, test. Did we get our tasting mats and cups yet? We have cups for the whole table? Okay. Everybody ready to go? Everybody ready to go? There we go. Did everybody vote straight Republican today? Raise your hand. Oh, sorry, that's the wrong meeting. I'm sorry. That was the one I was at earlier tonight. You know, I said this earlier to somebody. The beautiful thing about America is we invented democracy, right? We invented it. We invented voting for whoever you want, regardless of party, of who you want, and we also invented bourbon. We invented some cool stuff. My advice is vote for anybody you want and drink bourbon any way you want, but don't vote for anybody who can't put two sentences together, and don't put Coke in your bourbon. That advice was free. I am Steve Higdon. Welcome, everybody. It's great to have you for the event of 2022 for the Big Bourbon Club. These years are going fast. It seems like 1978. Your senior year in high school. No, that was 77. This is the last event of the year with Jim Beam. We're very excited. It was last November that we had Beth and Mike and the Jim Beam family here, and we had a great time, but we have an even more special night tonight because of what we're going to do. You'll hear about that in a minute. I'm fading in and out, Chuck. Oh, I thought you said hold it to my belly button. All right, sorry. Okay. Anyway, welcome to the last event of the year. Just to give you a little bit of a heads up, next year we have already booked in February. We have Heaven Hill presenting. In March, we have Four Roses. We have Penelope coming in from New Jersey in May. We have Garrison Brothers from Texas coming in June, and a lot more we're working on. So it's going to be a great year next year. And it just is unbelievable to me that it all started just a year and a half ago, and we've now had like 18 of these events. It's been crazy. And it's been extremely fun because of you all. Raise your hand if you're a Big Bourbon Club member. Raise your hand. Thank you. Raise your hand if you're not a Big Bourbon Club member. Wow. Stand up. No, don't sit down, Rick. All right. Cress, take $125 from them right now. If they can't afford this membership, they got bigger problems to worry about. We'd love to have you in, but thanks for being a member of the Big Bourbon Club. And let's do this. We've got a bunch of trivia questions tonight and a bunch of really cool Jim Beam swag up here. Callahan's, you're ineligible. You're illegible. Well, you win every time. I haven't found a category you don't know every answer in. Okay, you can play. You all can play. All right, so last year in November, Beth Burrow, lead ambassador at Jim Beam, came, and you all voted her the best presenter we had for the entire year. And so let me also introduce Mr. Michael Beam. Excuse me? Well, no, this is my club, and I'm not ready to bring her up now. Get ready, it's coming fast. I also wanted to introduce our great friend, Mike Beam. Mike Beam works for Southern Glacier, the distributor, but you may recognize his last name. It's not a coincidence that he works with Jim Beam. He's a great friend, a great supporter of Joe's, and a great supporter of Jim Beam Makers and all the family of spirits and brands there. But thank you for helping organize and put this together. We appreciate it. All right, with no further ado, Beth Burrow.
friends. Go ahead and get that situated. How are we? Doing well? Fantastic. Wonderful. About to get that much better, right? We've got an amazing lineup here. Like, I cannot express how excited I am to walk through all this with y'all. But as they go around and kind of get this in front of you, make sure that you have all three of those samples because you don't want to miss out on either the single barrel, which is going to be fantastic. I had a little sip a second ago. We also have our Knob Creek 18. How many people here have had the 18 before? Only a few. Fantastic. And then we have Little Book Chapter 6, which is the newest release in all of the Little Book family. Who's had that? A few of you all. All right. Fantastic. Yes, the 18 is the 18. Fantastic. We are going to go out of order, but we'll go through that here in a second. So nice to see so many familiar faces. But my name is Beth Burrows. I am the American Whiskey Ambassador for the James B. Beam Distilling Company. I live here in Kentucky because why wouldn't a Kentucky ambassador be here talking about whiskey, right? We talk American whiskey because rye it's a growing category, and I love it. So I like to encompass all of it. It's a lot of words that essentially mean that I travel and spread the good word. So I get to do that up and down the east part of the United States, sometimes across the United States. Depends on where people want me to talk about whiskey. And then I show up and I bring whiskey and I talk about it. So my job doesn't suck. And today, it brings me here to hang out with you all again. So very excited. Just found out that I was voted #1, so thanks for that. Fun. You don't have to cheer again, but thank you. So let's try to do better this time, or I'll just highly disappoint all of you. My dad already told me he was disappointed today, so we can't beat that, right? It's fine. You can try. Disappointing my parents for how many years? That's actually going to be one of the trivia questions is what year was I born? Seeing as we talked about graduating years a second ago, I just want to make everybody feel really old. So I've worked for this beam company for 6.5 years or so. I came in off of the tails of being a general manager of a bourbon bar, so was able to kind of cultivate and really understand what was going on in the bourbon boom, and it's just been growing ever since. One of the more often questions that I'm asked is, when is it going to end? Never, right? Because we have such amazing people and it's such a quality product, especially at the James B. Beam Distilling Company, that I think that we're going to be going for quite some time, which is nice when it comes to thinking about my job longevity. So, how many people have been back to the James B. Beam Distilling Company since we did our ribbon cutting in the spring? Have any of you all? Fantastic. Super exciting stuff. If you haven't been there, if you've never been to the James B. Beam Distilling Company, we are in Claremont, Kentucky. So that's about 25 minutes south of Louisville, just taking 65 straight down. Our facility was wonderful in and of itself, but during COVID, when everything shut down, we basically did 5 years of phase construction in 18 months. During that time, we redid the tour path. We also built the Fred B. No Distillery on campus. So this is a distillery within a distillery. We are also, as far as I know, the only distillery that have 2 active master distillers working side by side. So our 7th generation Beam family distiller, Fred No, who I'm sure most of you all have seen speak or have seen videos of him. I will try to keep my F-bombs to a lot fewer than his, mostly because they make me. But Fred is our 7th generation, like I said, master distiller, and he's been running the helm for quite some time. His father, Booker, was our previous master distiller. Unfortunately, we lost Booker in 2004. And so Fred really took the helm in the early 2000s, has gotten us through this bourbon boom. And then most recently, at that ribbon cutting, Frederick Booker No the fourth, also known as Freddie, was named as a co-master distiller. So super exciting stuff, especially because he is 35 years old and he has had a few years under his belt with this Little Book product, again, that we're going to talk about here in a little bit. So really learning from not only his father and his grandfather, but also the merger between Beam and Suntory in 2015, 2016 is when it was official. During that time, Freddie really has the opportunity to work underneath some of the masters of the craft in Japanese whiskey, and he's learned quite a bit from that. So without further ado, everybody has their first one on their tasting mat, yeah? Fantastic. Hi to all the people up there, too. We're excited that you're here. I can't read a single thing that's going in there, but that's why I've got you. You're going to be telling me what's going on in there. Forgot my glasses. I was just talking about being young, and here I am, the asshole that needs glasses. All right. So I said asshole, not fuck. All right? That's fine. And I didn't say it, I just mouthed it. Cheers to that. All right. All right. So as we go through this process, we're going to talk a little bit about this liquid. I want to know who in this room helped select this Knob Creek single barrel. Stand up if you were there when you selected this Knob Creek single barrel. Oh, that's not standing up. That's just raising a hand. All right. So you heard stories. Fantastic. Unanimous decision. That does not happen very often. So when you go and select a barrel of Knob Creek, you come to our facility at the James B. Beam Distilling Company, like I said, in Claremont. We're going to take you back to Warehouse K. So Warehouse K is on the back of the property. They're going to roll some barrels. Thank you, sir. They're going to roll some barrels out for you to select from. You're going to knock those bungs out. The bung knocker, a.k.a. a giant wooden hammer. Who did that? Anybody on the trip actually do that, or did they cheat and do the drill? You didn't? You didn't knock any bungs? All right, so they cheated and did the drill. Sometimes you can knock. Did you? It's always fun to watch people because it either happens right away or it's a serious struggle. And just the determination of somebody to get that bung out of the barrel is always an interesting process. You got to work for your whiskey. We don't just help, right? You got to work for it. So during that time, you're going to go ahead and knock those bungs out of those barrels. And from there, you're going to thieve it out. Side story, if you were here, I may have told this last time. Like I said, I've been in whiskey for quite some time. The first time I ever went on a barrel selection, I was so excited to talk about it on social media because, hi, millennial. And so during that time, I talked about thieving out of the barrel. My father sent me a message and was like, I raised you so much better than this. And I was like, I don't understand. You've been drinking my whole life. It can't be about that. And so he said, I raised you to never be a thief and to be dumb enough to post it online. So for those of you who haven't been out to a barrel selection before, thieving just means putting a giant whiskey thief, which is basically like a copper straw, down into that barrel, putting your thumb over the top. It's going to suck all that liquid out of there, and you're going to be able to put it into your tasting glasses. That's how we like to do it, to be nice and showman when you come out to the distillery. If we're doing our actual distillery checks, all you're going to do is they're going to drill a little hole in the end, take a sample, and then plug that back up. But the theatrics of it, right? You're in Warehouse K. It's a very special place. It's on the back of the property. You walk through and have these aromatics and all of the things. The folks that were there can pretty much attest to it. If you've ever been on a barrel selection, it's overwhelming, just kind of the sensory overload inside of a warehouse. So during that time, they're going to walk out of that warehouse. They're going to smell and taste these samples, and they're going to decide. You said it was unanimous, which to get that many people to say, I like this, means that this was one hell of a barrel. Yeah? And there are no bad barrels in Knob Creek, y'all. Trust me, I've tried. We've gone through a lot of barrels. None of them are bad. Some are just better than others, in my opinion. And I think this one's going to be pretty fantastic. So all the way to the left-hand side of your tasting mat, it's going to be that Knob Creek single barrel. So the first thing you want to do is pick it up, hold it up to the light. Check that color. There are no wrong answers. What do you see? What kind of coloring does this have? Nice and amber. Is it a deep amber? Is it a light amber? Deep amber. Fantastic. Next thing you want to do is put it up underneath your nose, slightly part your lips and inhale. We want to slightly part those lips because we want to make sure that we don't get that direct alcohol burn right up our nose. This is a 120 proof. Yes, you all, 120 proof. Let's get this started. All right. What do you smell on those aromatics? Caramel, vanilla, all of those big bolstering characteristics that you expect out of your whiskey, right? Cherry. I'm talking like baked cherry pie or like bright bushel of cherries. Big cherry pie, fantastic. All right, I'm going to talk you through the next part, then I'm going to show you because it's going to sound like a lot, but I promise it's not. In order to do the Kentucky Chew, this is where I'm scared. It's the first one, so surely their hug won't be as descriptive.
Beth, don't be scared. It's okay.
If y'all were here last time, the descriptors got real descriptive by the third tasting.
No, who was here for the Jim Beam a year ago, November? Who was the lady that talked about having a crush on her daughter's new boyfriend that came over at age 6? It was.
She sat at that table. I instinctively started looking
Who was
over there.
that? Well,
We won't call her out. It's fine. It was a lot. Let's just leave it at it was a lot. So when we talk about descriptors, let's talk about descriptors of people of legal drinking age. Yeah? Fantastic. That's where we'll move forward from here. All right. So that's a sidetrack. But to get these tasting notes, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to take a sip. You're going to chew it all the way around your mouth. You want it to hit your cheeks, the roof of your mouth, your gum, your tongues, right? And then you're going to swallow for that finish, what we call the Kentucky hug, which is where shit went bad last time. Then you're going to smack your lips and exhale. By smacking your lips, you're going to aerate everything inside of your palate. And then by exhaling, you're going to make sure that you don't trap any of that proof on your tongue. Like I said, it sounds like a lot, but it looks like this. Cheers, friends.
check, 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 check.
Yeah? All right, so on that nose, we talked about vanillas, caramels, even a little bit of like that cherry pie. Where does it hit you on your palate? Front? Where was it? In the middle? There's no wrong answers, y'all. It's going to depend on what you ate, if this is your first sip of the day, all of those things. If you smoked a cigarette or a cigar earlier, all of that's going to take into effect. For me, it's mid-palate, kind of cascades across the entirety of my tongue. Now, when we talk about that hug, this is, again, where shit went really wrong last time. So keeping it, at least of legal drinking age, if this was a real person hugging you, we personified our whiskey. Hopefully, all y'all have been hugged before. If not, let's talk about it over some more whiskey. Therapy's real. But if this was a real hug, what kind of hug would it be? What do y'all think? Just a little tap on the back? Long embrace. All right, so super close. Bear hug. Pick you up bear hug or just leaves you on the ground? Leaves you on the ground? Okay, so not like a full. All right. I like this. Anybody else? What was it? 120 proof kind of hug. All right, I hear you. All right, it looks like y'all have a little bit left in that glass. I'm going to ask you to go do that Kentucky. I didn't do it. That was you. It was by my face the whole time. Y'all saw it. All right, so do it one more time. We're going to talk about flavor profile on the second taste. Because as we go through and taste, the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to prime that palate, right? That's why we talked about how it hits you on your palate. That's why we talked about how it hugs you. Because those are going to be instinctive reactions on how you're tasting. From there, we're going to be able to really start to discern flavor profile. So do that second Kentucky chew. As we talked about earlier, like we said, caramels, vanillas, cherry pie. Does any of that carry through on your second sip? All of it? Cinnamon comes through? So we're talking like baking spices on that finish. Maybe you didn't kick them on the aromatics. An apple pie. All right. Green apple, red apple, mixed apple. Green apple. All right. Fantastic. Folks that went on this, Mike, do you know how long this bad boy was aged? Let's see.
10 and a half.
10 and a half. Look at you. Beautiful. So after that 10 and a half years, you have a lot going on. What were y'all doing 10 and a half years ago? Take a moment. Like literally think about it. What were you doing 10 and a half years ago?
I was running a.
You were running, oh, memories.
Maybe that was 24 years ago.
Okay. I just like to have that moment because I think it's super important when we think about the fact that whiskey was created, like this whiskey was created 10 and a half years ago. And all it has done is gone into a barrel and sat and waited for this moment for you to taste it. This moment right here. Cue Eminem. This is your one shot. Mom's spaghetti moment. You got it. I'm here for, listen, if I get one laugh from one person, that's all I give a shit about. How do we feel about that? Solid job, y'all. Let's give them a round of applause because this is a hell of a barrel. Way to go, Big Bourbon Club. Selectors.
Okay, hey. So who was on last year's barrel pick? Our first Knob Creek. This is our second. Chris, we did that here. We did it here during COVID. And you brought it to us, I believe. Am I right? Yeah, Jeff, you were there. And I don't remember everybody else. But I've said this, we've done about 20 picks now. And I've said this to everybody. I believe Knob Creek #1 up until now was my favorite all-time pick. That and the Yellowstone were my two favorites. And that was the number one pick of the Big Bourbon Club. That's exactly right. Sorry. What's that? No, it's not available. No, that's another Bourbon Club you're part of. It's not available. But the second pick, we have probably 10 bottles left, and I believe it's equally as good as the first. It is fabulous. It is absolutely fabulous. So what did you all think of that? Does anybody have a comparison between that and last year's? Have you thought about that? You think it's better? It's fantastic, isn't it? It is really good. Last year's was 9.5 to 10-year-old. This is about a year older. Same proof. We got this at 123, proofed it down to 120, but it's incredible. It's like 9.5. Yeah, this is about a year older.
Steve.
Yeah, I think that was like April of COVID.
Steve.
Yeah. So let's take a quick break. We've got a question. Alex Calling on the rich side of Little Rock, Arkansas, has a question, Beth, of you. Alex, speak up. It's kind of loud and crazy in here.
Well, I'm not even on the rich side of Little Rock. I'm in a suburb, so if that tells you anything. But anyway, so quick question. Why is Knob Creek, why are their single barrels bottled at 120 rather than barrel proof or barrel strength?
So solid question. Something that we kind of get asked quite a bit. And that's because when we file for our TTB, so all of the legal paperwork that has to happen to keep it consistent at 120 is going to allow for the time frame to be much shorter. It's also going to allow for a lot less paperwork, which just means that the execution of you getting your barrel is going to go a lot smoother. We did, I want to say it was 4 years ago. Time means nothing. COVID just ruined it all, right? But I think 4 years ago when we released a bunch of single barrels at their barrel strength, the amount of TTB red tape that we had to walk through to do it was just unimaginable. And that was such a small release versus a program where we are really, selling barrels 2 times a day, every day, right? Depending on kits and things like that and all the allocations across the United States. So it's really just a streamlining process to make sure that we keep everything very legal and keep it together. I'm looking at you here like you can see me here, but I should not be looking here.
So it's the government's fault is what you're saying.
What was that? I'm sorry. It's the government's fault? Yes.
It's okay. Yeah. Yeah.
We can blame the government. That's not anything you can vote on. This is just the TTB. So
yeah. What can you do?
What was that?
But yeah, thanks for the feedback. I appreciate it. Cheers.
No worries. Great question. So, yeah.
Any other questions out here?
Comments, happy thoughts on this Knob Creek single barrel.
I've got a couple questions from Facebook Live. Hold on.
All right.
So Matt Giampaolo from California. Matt Giampaolo says, tell us about the kitchen table restaurant.
Oh, be happy to. So part of that process of doing that 5 years of phase construction over 18 months was creating the kitchen table restaurant. So yes, you've been there, whoever just wooed. Kitchen table is fantastic. Not only do we have just the expertise of Chef Brian Landry, but the entire crew there is just top notch at execution. I haven't had a bad meal. I haven't had a bad cocktail. It is just one of the coolest accoutrement to our distillery that you could possibly think of. So it's been a really, really great asset for us to have. So not only if you are just going on tour and you want to grab some food, it has become a destination spot for people from Louisville to come down to, as well as other distilleries folks. When they are on barrel selections at their distillery, they're bringing their folks to the kitchen table to have some dinner or have some lunch because it is such a fantastic place. It was just named in Garden and Gun magazine as one of the top 10 restaurants worth the drive in the United States. So, like I said, 25 minutes down the road is not too far to go for a great meal and in a beautiful atmosphere, especially if you're there to kind of watch the sun go back behind all of the warehouses as you're sipping and eating. So, great question. Come visit. On the Knob Creek. So this is a Knob Creek bourbon. Thank you for the question. So the question was, is this a rye mash bill? Rye is our secondary flavoring ingredient when it comes to the James B. Beam Distilling Company for the most part and most of our mash bills. So this is going to be our original yeast strain, the same yeast strain that Jim Beam caught in his backyard wildly in 1935 that we've been live propagating ever since. We are one of the only distilleries that live propagates our jug yeast. And that's just to make sure that we maintain that very specific consistency. I always talk about the nuttiness of the Beam yeast strain. So that shows up differently in each one of the brands. I think that Knob Creek, especially Knob Creek single barrel, where you have all of that flavor really packed in, it almost shows up as a candied pecan. So when we start to think about how that nuttiness shows up, peanut kind of in the Jim Beam portfolio, and then again, that candied pecan in this. So secondary ingredient is rye. It is not a rye forward, but it is traditionally our secondary ingredient. Yes. Oh, for sure. Yeah, so talking again about just that process of walking through the distillery, when you walk in, the first thing that you're going to see in the tour itself is going to be a replica of Jim Beam's Cadillac. So Jim Beam would take the yeast strain home with him every night in a jug. He left it in his living room. Refrigeration wasn't really a thing at the time, so he would keep it cool. And that was just to make sure that that yeast strain stayed consistent. He didn't want to leave it somewhere, have anything really mess with it, any of those types of things, right? They're all in different spaces. It's a very religious experience for the people who are utilizing and propagating that yeast. Like I'm talking about, they have a certain way that they face. There's certain things that they say. Like they are really in the church of the yeast strain when it comes to the propagation of that yeast. And each one of our different people who are over it. So there's about 5 people that are in charge of that. Freddie No being one of them. They have their own propagated yeast in their own spaces that are secret and we don't know about. So they are keeping it in very selective spaces. And speaking of kitchen table, one of the funny stories that Chef Landry likes to tell is in the very beginning, they needed that yeast strain in order to make the pizza dough because our pizza at the kitchen table is made with the jug yeast of the James B. Beam Distilling Company. So really just pulling through that consistency. It makes for a really great pizza, by the way. Hot honey, perfection.
All right, so we're going to have our first trivia question now, and I'm going to ask it.
Go ahead.
And Beth, here's your role. Oh, shit, the Callahan's just pulled a hamstring. I haven't
They're
even
stretching.
asked it
They're
yet.
ready.
So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to ask the question. You're going to judge who raised their hand first.
Okay.
If you yell out an answer, you're disqualified.
I'm watching.
Raise your hand. Beth will pick, and you'll get one shot at it, okay?
No pressure.
You all nervous? Okay. So here's the first trivia question. And Aaron Mann, stand up. Aaron made this for us to contribute to tonight.
Love
and
it.
Aaron did this the last time too. So thank you. I didn't ask you to say anything. I said stand up. But after the trivia question, I'm going to hand the mic over to Aaron, who has a very important public service announcement. For less than 1 minute, he does. It's a short PSA.
I'm watching for hands.
In all seriousness, Aaron, thank you. You're welcome. Absolutely. So here's the first trivia question, Stacy. I haven't said it yet. I know how you Taylorsville Road folks are. Whose boyhood home did Knob Creek run through?
That's the one.
Come on, Ed. The answer is Knob Creek ran through Abraham Lincoln's boyhood home.
True statement.
There you go. All right, congratulations, Aaron.
Thanks, Steve. Really? Right. But thank you all for coming out. Appreciate it. Love Jim Beam. It was one of the first ones I ever had as a legal drinking adult.
Perfect.
But once again, like Steve said, my name is Aaron Mann. I am a top shelf member here of the Big Bourbon Club. But I am also a member of a local lodge, Fraternal Order of Police here in Louisville, Kentucky. And every year we try to help some underprivileged kids have a Christmas to be excited about. And we do Shop with a Cop or Cops and Kids. I've passed out a few literature on a couple of the tables that has a link. But I am asking for the Big Bourbon Club to, if you can, please donate so we can help some kids actually get some winter clothes, some socks, and actually to have a Christmas present. And this year, we're hoping to have enough money to where the kid can purchase a present for a loved one, so they can kind of know what it feels like to help out and in that giving spirit. But once again, if you have any questions, like I said, you can reach out to me on the app for those that are virtual tonight. But thanks, Steve. I appreciate it.
You're most welcome, Aaron.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. What's more important than our kids having a great Christmas, right? Aaron also participated on the Laws Whiskey House pick. We just launched it for sale. We have it here. You're welcome to taste it. We'd love for you to take a bottle home with you. And it is, don't ever try to compare it to a Kentucky bourbon because you'll be disappointed. It's a Colorado bourbon, high elevation, tastes very different, extremely high quality, very tasty, and it's very good. But we've met Outlaws out in Colorado. I was there last week with the Laws, and Aaron was at the house doing the pick, and it's fabulous. So you can go get it in the back. We also have the Knob Creek bottles. We have Marble Distilling and a few of the Peerless bottles left. So help yourself to that. And with no further ado, Beth,
Next
let's
tasting,
go to
yeah?
number 2.
Perfect. So we're going to make it harder on you all. We're not going to go in order. We're actually going to skip over the little book and finish with that, and I'll tell you why later. But the next one that we're going to taste is going to be that Knob Creek 18. So only a few of you all raised your hands on this Knob Creek 18. So I'm very excited to get this liquid to your lips. I was skeptical, y'all. I'm going to go ahead and tell you, normally liquid that is over the age of 15, I become rather skeptical of. I recorded the tasting where I did this with Freddie because I try to do that because I like to live in the moment and not be necessarily taking notes, but really want to live that moment in time and then come back and assess it. And I went back and listened to it, and you hear me literally cuss under my breath because of how stupidly good this liquid is. I expected to go into it with it not being my favorite of what we were going to be tasting that day, and it became the overwhelming favorite of what I had in that tasting. So with Knob Creek's family growing, it was pretty much the second of the small batch collection to grow a full family, right? We saw Booker's having its family of 6 releases every single year up until about 2016 when it switched to 4, but still that family grew. Knob Creek was what Fred Noe took on the road with his dad. And we've watched Fred, as our master distiller, really, really grow this brand, not only with the Knob Creek single barrel and the Knob Creek rye, but things like the 12, the 15, that 12 candle was beautiful, by the way, the 12, the 15, the 18, and all of these wonderful expressions that we've seen. So go ahead and pick up that Knob Creek 18. So that last Knob Creek single barrel that we had, that was a 10-and-a-half-year-old, right? So this stayed for 7.5 more years inside of that barrel. So that color is a deeper amber. This is 100 proof, so we're going down in proof. Put it up underneath your nose, slightly part your lips. What do you get on that nose? Vanilla, tobacco, cinnamon. I get lots of those baking spices. All right, give it a nice sip. Kentucky Chew. We'll talk about where it hits you. Cheers, friends.
What were you doing 18 years ago?
That's going to ruin the question of what year I was born in.
Yeah.
Gives too much information out there in the world. See, what was I doing? Yes, look at you. So smart. Thank you. As I stand here and drink on camera. This is going to be 100 proof. So we did go down in proof. Where's this one hit you on your palate? Tip of the tongue? Right in the sweet spot? Middle of the tongue? Mine kind of starts on the tip and then cascades across. It still stays mid to front, but it definitely covers and coats. What about that hug? Grandma hug. So it feels warm and familiar, and you feel loved when you drink Knob Creek 18. Listen, nothing can be worse. We can't get worse. That's not a challenge. It's going to change it, right? And like I said, we are going very unorthodox in this, but when we talk about flavor profile, I definitely wanted you to taste this one, taste your single barrel first, because this is harder to taste. Take a sip of water in between. That is going to help reset your nose if you're not wearing any cologne or perfumes or strong soaps. Smell your own arm. That's going to reset your aromatics because you can't smell yourself. You can't. That's what I said, but like you want to smell your actual skin. Smelling like how well someone did their laundry. Different situation. But that's like if you do kind of go through an anosmic moment, you can always reset your smell by just giving yourself a little bit of a smell on your arm. I know it sounds weird, but it's true. Y'all are just making it weird. All right. I didn't make it up. You can ask any of our sensory scientists. Thank you, sir. He backs me up. All right, go ahead and take that second sip. We're going to talk about that flavor profile. So on the nose, we said we had some cinnamon, some baking spices, some tobacco. Those vanillas and caramels were still there. Does it carry through on the flavor profile? You got some smoke. All right. So smoke, are we talking like peaty smoke, like a scotch? No? Okay. What kind of smoke are we talking? Firewood smoke. Okay. If you had to pick a wood, is it a cherry wood, an apple wood, hickory, butterscotch wood? All right. So like if somebody was making butterscotch over a open wood fire. All right. Sweet. It's uncharacteristically sweet for something at 18 years old. Flintstones vitamins. Okay. So you're getting a little bit of an earthiness to it? I mean, as someone who literally used to eat those, that is a very like ingrained flavor profile in my brain. How do we feel about it? Surprising, right? Not that we didn't think it was going to be delicious, but I think that age statement, sometimes it throws people off. My general age statement that I like to kind of drink within is 7 to 12. That's really what my general time frame is. Will I drink outside of it? Definitely. I love to hear that. You can say that louder, but I won't say it out loud. Because I don't bash other brands. All right. Any questions, comments, happy thoughts as we move on from Knob Creek 18 and talk about this little book, chapter 6, to the finish? All right. You got anything?
Yeah, I got some.
What you got?
So tell us, mash bill on that. How much of that is malted barley? What percent?
So we don't actually give percentages, and you know this.
Okay, it was a trick question.
I know you tried. I saw you.
So listen, everybody, pay attention. Does anybody not know what malted barley is? I bet some of you don't know. Okay. Ricky, come on up here.
Ooh, you have to come to the front of the class.
The largest malted barley producer and seller in the world, Rick Barney, my good friend. Would you give them, he had no idea I was going to do this. Rick was my bodyguard 30 years ago. I never got my ass kicked once. Would you give him 2 minutes on what malted barley is? Because a lot of people don't know.
I will. Thank you. Thank you. Hello, audience. Thank you,
Perfect.
Steve. Nice to be here. Appreciate being here. Most people associate malted barley with beer, and you obviously would be correct. If you're not a bourbon fan or follow the spirit, you might not know that malted barley is a part of it, but it's used in a very different way than brewers use barley. Brewers would use barley for flavor, aroma, extract. Okay, distillers use that malted barley for the enzymes to chew through the corn, chew through the starches to create those sugars to prepare them for the yeast, to get that yeast really something for that yeast to eat up. So that's about 2 minutes on what malted barley is. Now we could get into varieties and percentages and all that, but we're not. Yes. Raw barley must go through the malting process to prepare itself for a brewer and or a distiller. The malting process consists of taking the moisture in that barley into the steeping process to get that living grain to germinate. Okay, it actually starts to grow again. It begins to grow. It respirates, much like all of us are breathing right now. Okay, and depending on the variety of barley and the variety of malted barley you're trying to produce, the temperature and the time frame and the periods of in and out of water will change that product. But in essence, you're bringing that grain back to life. It actually starts to sprout in the germination process. Then it goes into the kilning process. And it's the kilning process that terminates the growing process. And that's where the magic of the maltster really comes to life, especially for beer. Time frame, periods of temperature, airflow, time changes the color, the aroma, the flavor of that malted barley. Specific to distillers, again, they're using that barley for the enzyme package, okay? And I'm not going to get into anything proprietary, but we are known for our distillers malt. We're also not going to get into. Yeah, well, that's as short as I can tell it.
Listen, Rick did not know I was going to ask him to come up. It's an incredible story. Raise your hand if you're a UK basketball fan. Raise your hand if you know who Mike Pratt is. Mike was Rick's college coach down at UNC Charlotte. All right, Rick, go sit down. You're the greatest. You're the greatest. Don't ever change.
I don't think you understand just how well you set up the conversation that we're about to have about Little Book Chapter 3.
Well, we practiced last night for 2 hours.
Is that what it was? I wasn't here. So, I mean, you knew, I didn't. What's his product?
Hey, Rick. Rick, stand up and speak real loud. Real quick, tell them what your company name is, where they're located in South Dakota, and I believe you're the largest in North America malter, right?
Our headquarters are in Milwaukee. Malt Europe we are now known as Malt Europe since about 2004. We've been malting in North America since the late 1800s. We have 3 malt houses: Great Falls, Montana, Winona, Minnesota, and Winnipeg, Canada. Our headquarters are in Milwaukee, and we are probably one of 3 or 4 large commercial global maltsters. We are the one that focuses on the distilling segment more than the others.
You all sell distillers across the country and brewers across the country. In your facility in Great Falls, isn't it the largest malting facility under one roof in North America?
Definitely one time it was. I think it still is. It's we malt 450 metric tons per batch. Wow. It's about 4 football fields under roof and malt houses.
It's like a super small operation.
Hey, Bill, do we have anybody lined up, or you raised your hand, but I don't know if you're raising it at me. Yeah, that's what you're raising your hand at. Okay, so never mind. Before we go to the little book, which I just drank because it was in the wrong order for me, I'll go to the 18 next. Any questions on the 18-year-old Knob Creek? Any other? All right, I think we set you up for the
You did. You set me up really well. And
grand
I
finale.
don't know if you know how well you set me up with that conversation, because I just did a lot of educating that I no longer have to do. So you're welcome. We're going to learn a lot tonight. So one of the coolest things, we talked a little bit about Little Book, the fact that our 8th generation master distiller, Freddie No, has been doing this since 2017. So Little Book is a Class A whiskey blend, which essentially means that all of the components of what he's putting together are fully fledged whiskeys before they get mingled together to create his Little Book product. Okay, we talk about blending, we talk about mingling. A lot of times, especially people that are in the purest side of the bourbon world, feel like this is wrong or we're doing something weird or different. We're not. Whiskey has had the art of blending as a piece of it for a very, very long time. And the opportunity for us as Beam Suntory, with the 5th ever chief blender of Suntory, Shinji Fukuyo, at the helm. So things like Hibiki, right? Y'all have had some Hibiki? Yeah? Never had some Hibiki? Missing out. So a lot of these very coveted Japanese whiskeys come underneath the guise and the guidance of Fukuya-san. So that opportunity has been passed along for Freddie to spend some time really understanding what the art of the blend is really about. Really changing the landscape of how we think about American whiskey and how we think about bourbon as a category, right? And how we think about how American whiskey is going to move forward. As we know, American whiskey is not going to die anytime soon, right? And as it grows, there's going to be plenty of avenues in which it's going to grow. One of those avenues is going to be in the blending side of things. So what you have in that glass is Little Book Chapter 6. One of the coolest ways, so Freddie usually gives components to the ambassadors. We're able to taste what he was working with, how it kind of all came together. He gives us the stories. This one was a bit, not only is it different because of what the finishing process is, but because of how he tasted. The component whiskeys that I received were the final product minus one component. And he did that so that you could taste through and say, without this component, we're missing X. And it really showcased the process of how he thinks through the blending process. So this is comprised of multiple different strains, right? When it comes multiple different whiskeys, that it really brings together to the finish, Chapter 6 Little Book. Your first component is going to be 5-year-old Kentucky straight bourbon whiskey. Okay, so we're starting as our Kentucky straight bourbon whiskey at 5 years old. The rest of the 4 components are all single malt barley. So that's where you set me up. That education on what barley is a really, really great soiree into what we're going to talk about with these finishes. So there's 4 different wood finishes. And when I say that, there's 2 different ways in which we're utilizing that wood. One of them is going to be via staves. You all have probably seen the Maker's 46 process, right? With the ring of staves in there. These staves are going to be longer and more thin. Okay, they're going to be a little bit more of a wafer type, and they're going to be in there for 12 weeks. So of the finishes, we've got the cherry wood finish. That's going to be a stave. We also have our hickory finish, which is going to be a smoke. So a smoke finish. Our applewood, which is going to be a smoke finish. And then our cherry wood, which is going to be a stave finish. So hickory, smoke, apple, smoke, cherry, wood in the stave form. And then I'm missing one. I just said it out loud. Maple, that's the other one. So our maple is also going to be our stave. So those 4 components, all based off of single malts, all going to be finished in their own right, whether it be from the stave or from the smoke. Then they're going to be mingled together with that Kentucky straight bourbon whiskey. So you're looking at 5-year-old liquid to start. Then all of the finishes are 4 years old, plus they're 12 weeks. All of those are going to mingle together, and I believe it's 117.4 that you're going to be tasting in this to the finish, Chapter 6. So technically, if you were going to put a number on it, it would be 4 years and 12 weeks. Because you have to go by the youngest barrel in the batch. However, with that, it's really just about the process more so than the age of this liquid. So what I want you to do, I know that we've all been really good, big bourbon consumers, because this is, after all, the Big Bourbon Club. I want you to think about how we've gone through time. 10 and a half years, 18 years, the fact that this is 4 years. Each one in their own right is different, unique, and special because of how it's created, just like each and every one of you. Yeah, we went there. Yeah, you're welcome.
Boom.
Bringing it all together. That's my Mr. Rogers moment. All right, but because of that, I always want to take it back, because I think when we get really honed in on how old something is or who's creating it or whatever it is, we have these preconceived notions, right? We had a preconceived notion about the 18-year that maybe it wasn't going to be our palate because it's older. We have preconceived notions. Some people were talking about having the barreled and boxed, right? When the Hardin's Creek came out, people had preconceived notions about that 2-year-old. But if you taste it and nobody ever told you it was 2 years old, you would never know, right? So those preconceived notions all kind of need to be washed away. And that's what I want you to do right now. You've thought about what Little Book's going to taste like. I don't know if any of y'all have tasted it yet, but you've thought about what you're expecting out of this, all right? Listen, guy, pay your dues, damn it, all right? Become part of this club instead of just being a heckler. You're welcome. I did your job for you. Had to pull it together. All right. So shed all those preconceived notions about what it is that you're about to taste. All right. And we're going to take this liquid for what it is, which is the 6th ideation coming from Freddie No, who is the future of the James B. Beam Distilling Company. Someone who is really pushing the boundaries of American whiskey and has done something truly unique, not only utilizing the bourbon and the single malt process, but 2 different types of finishing in that process. All right. So cheers, friends. Give it a nice
Toast.
smell. What do you get on that nose? There's a lot happening. So much happening. You can reset your nose if you need to. This has also been sitting in a poured state for just a moment, and it's in a plastic glass. If you need to, figure out one side of your nose that you want to utilize, plug the other side. Put it nearby. Make sure that you slightly part your lips and inhale. If you don't smell anything too much on that side, switch to the other side. All right? That's going to give you an opportunity to really isolate that smell and those aromatics. All right, go ahead and do that Kentucky Chew. That hits you on the back end. That hits me lips, middle of the palate, straight to the back of my palate. That hug starts immediately. It lingers. This is more of a cuddle because it's holding you. It's more of a cuddle, right? That long, long embrace. Huh? Strong maple? So remember, when he did this too, in those components, it was super interesting to go through each one because you would taste where maybe the apple fell off. And then you would add a different component, like adding in the hickory elevated the apple. So all of these things, or you would taste one component and it would allow for a great mouthfeel and a really great presence on your palate, but it left you lacking in the finish. And it, again, it was such a unique way to look at the perspective of blending from what piece is next. A lot like when you're cooking, right? Or you're learning how to cook. You've had this dish that you've got the recipe for that you really just want to recreate. And you're going through and tasting and going, but I need a little bit more of this, right? I want it to have more of this. And that was really what Freddie was able to do with this to the finish. I think it's a super unique take. I think it's really cool as we talk about the ways that we can pull those levers. Not only can you pull levers on the front end, where you can talk about your mash bill, you can talk about how you distill it, if it's going to be, you know, a lower distillation proof, if you want to add water before it goes in the barrel, if you want it to be chill filtered, or you want it to be, you know, all of these different things. Another lever that you can really pull is going to be that finishing component. All right.
Okay, Beth,
What you got?
we've got a question.
I've got
So,
an answer,
Mr.
maybe.
Bill Reynolds, bring him up. I'm not sure who it is. Bob Bright out of Melrose, Massachusetts.
How you doing?
That's the rich side of Boston, if you don't know.
I love that everybody's on the rich side of everything.
Bob, how you doing, man?
Good. How you doing?
Doing good. Speak up real loud.
Okay, so the first question is actually from Thomas Reed.
All right, everybody hold down. Keep it down real quick. Go ahead, Bob.
Okay, the first question is from Thomas Reed. Is Little Book called Little Book because it's just younger than Booker's?
So it's not actually. It does have to do with Booker. So, solid question. Little Book is named after the nickname that Freddie No had as a child. He is a exact replica in so many ways of his grandfather Booker. So much so that he was annoying the absolute bejesus out of his grandmother at one point in time. And she said, "You know what? You're just as aggravating as your grandfather. You're just like a little Booker." And it stuck. So Little Booker got pivoted to Little Book. And so when it came time for him to name this brand that he was going to have his stamp on for, the rest of his journey, it became Little Book. So you can see the seal on the side, which is why each one of them is in chapters. We're going with that book theme. It also replicates how it shows up in the packaging, with the box very much like Booker's, and then that bottle being the same. Handwritten label, all of those different kind of very subtle attributes that we know to make Booker's Bookers. Little Book has a lot of those assets too. So comes from the nickname.
Very good.
Bob, did you have a second question?
Yes, my question is: do they do a double oaked?
All right, it was hard to hear you. Say it one more time, Bob.
Do they do a double oaked?
Double oak of Little Book. Is that what you're asking?
Of any product that I haven't seen.
So we've got a Jim Beam Double Oak that is a permanent staple in the line of the Jim Beam brands, which is very delicious. We've also done a double barreled of the Knob Creek Rye, but that was many, many years ago. Still one of the greatest liquids.
Any intentions on doing more?
I'm sorry?
Any intentions on doing any more?
More malt will be coming out in the process. You will definitely be seeing some things in the future that contain the single malt aspects of what we're doing at the James Beam.
So Bob, thank you for wearing your big Bourbon Club shirt tonight to be on TV in Louisville. And my trivia question about Bob Wright: he is gainfully employed in the construction industry, but take a guess what he does on the Christmas Eve and on Christmas Day. Ho, 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 big dog. Bob, thanks for joining us, man.
All right.
Appreciate it.
You got it.
Have a good night in Boston. Okay, so we're going to do the next trivia question, and I've got this.
What you got?
Everybody listen up. We're going to do this mug. Beth, you may not remember this, but I sure do, that last year you told us that one of your big favorite Beam products had it's been years ago, and it had a secret grain in it.
Oh, I remember this.
I do too, because I have a bottle at home. Can anybody name the grain that was used?
I said, we just talked about it. I'm looking at you. He's not for remembering the conversation, but we just had a conversation about it.
No, it's something that you would never hear. I've never heard it before.
I heard the words.
And actually,
brown rice. Same lineup, but he got the brown rice.
Who said it first? Chris? All right, brown rice. So.
Told you.
And it's, I'd never heard of it. And Alex, who gave us our first question tonight, brought a bottle in from Arkansas, and I have it. It's incredible.
It's incredible liquid.
Tell these fans about brown rice and the bourbon.
Most definitely. So what we were talking about levers that we can pull, right? Mash bill was one of those levers. So we did a brown rice mash bill. It was released in December of 2014 as part of the Harvest Collection. They came out in 375, so 375 milliliter bottles. And there were 6 different grains that were showcased in that. The triticale, which I heard you say, the brown rice, there was a high rye, there was a rolled oat, and I can't, that was a soft red winter wheat, and there was one more. Sure. Okay. So there were 6 of them. They were fantastic. They were 11 years old. They were some of the last liquid that was laid down by Booker before he passed away. And we put them out in, again, the 375s. They flew under the radar. They stayed on back shelves for a while. I think I've talked about it for the last 6.5 years. So who knows if there's any of the brown rice left on shelves anywhere across the U.S. But there is a brown rice mash bill that has been distilled since. So if you were part of the Barreled and Boxed, it came out in your last Barreled and Boxed. There was a kind of sneak peek into what we're working with in the brown rice. And we've continued to distill it. I got a phone call from the distillery during COVID, and they were like, hey, I know times are bleak, but we're distilling brown rice. Do you want to come taste distillate? 100%. In my pajamas at the distillery, drinking brown rice distillate as it came off of the actual still. Solid memories. something to look forward to. So the brown rice is a really, really cool grain. It's going to have a different kind of mouthfeel. It's going to bring a sweetness that isn't typical of what you're going to get as that secondary ingredient of rye, right, which tends to be very spicy. So it's just going to lend itself to something very different on the profile. So on its way.
Do you think we'll ever see that again?
Brown rice is coming. So Barreled and Boxed already showcased a little bit of brown rice. I don't know if we'll ever see an 11-year-old again.
Yep.
But you are going to start seeing it utilized throughout certain things in the James B. Beam portfolio.
All right. I've got a question out of Facebook Live.
Yes.
So if someone wants to come and do a tour of Jim Beam, what's the typical time that it would take to order tickets to be able to get in?
So you can get online. I don't necessarily know how far in advance we are out right now. We are, is it 2 months? I was going to say it's a hot minute.
So if you didn't hear it, probably 2 months to be safe. So if you're planning a trip to come to Kentucky, get on there before 2 months. Go 3 months out and plan the trip because they're very, very busy.
And you can book it. You can book it right there online. So it's an any road, which is what a lot of distilleries do. It's gonna allow for you to reserve as many tickets as you need to on that site, and it'll tell you whether or not they have the capacity to do it. But I highly recommend, if you're gonna start planning for your 2023 adventures to Kentucky or out on the Bourbon Road, definitely get on that.
Okay,
Great
so
question.
Real quick, let's take a straw vote. If your
favorite tonight was
book chapter 6, raise your hand. Holy Toledo.
That's a solid number.
18.
Still a solid number.
Bourbon Club pick.
There we are.
Just saying. So there you go.
I love it.
These are all experts.
I mean,
At least they believe they are.
hey, everybody's an expert in their own right when it comes to their palate.
So, Sandy.
really close. Little Book and what?
And our pick.
In our pick. We listen to Sandy when she speaks.
I have been. I will go find them.
So
We have a few other giveaways, right?
We do.
Now I've done 2 trivias. You want to take over and do some trivias and we'll give them away?
For sure. I've said it tonight. It was kind of in passing, but our 8th generation master distiller has taken on the role as a co-master distiller with his father. How old does Freddie know? I saw that. Ooh, that's a hard one because he raised his hand first, but somebody yelled out the right answer. That's the right answer.
Come on and
so
pick.
So close. He just turned 35.
He's
so
come on, you get to pick. Now, don't you dare touch a bottle. That's not part.
It's the things in front. So, just so that you all know, you have a beer. Yep, wooden sign. That Jim Beam wooden sign.
All
to
right.
adorn your living room or garage.
This is kind of like being at the state fair when you squirt the squirt gun and the balloons blow up. You get to pick your stuffed animal.
Please don't squirt whiskey at the people up on stage. All right, next question. I don't know if we mentioned this. How many years have the Beam family been distilling whiskey?
How many years have they been distilling? If you miss it, you got to pay us $100. No, I'm just joking. Ed.
25.
Higher.
182.
Higher.
127.
212. This is getting out of control.
So the closest I've heard didn't go over is closest I've heard is 225.
212?
No.
225?
Was the closest. It's still not right. 227. 227
What do they
years.
say? Even a blind squirrel finds an
Acorn
acorn.
ever done it? Come on up here, Mark.
I know what he wants. I already know what he wants.
Okay, we've got a few more giveaways, but before we do that, let me introduce you all to good friend Haley Hickey. Haley works at the Fraser Museum as a head of marketing.
Haley is also the executive director of Bourbon Limited, and Haley's going to tell you a little bit about it.
Okay, I have 2 minutes. I have 2 minutes. Maybe I'll take 3 if that's okay. I feel like every one of you all is hugging me right now. So thank you. So I have a handful of cards in my hands. I'm going to set them over here a little bit later. Like Steve said, I work at Fraser History Museum. We are the official starting point of the Bourbon Trail. if you haven't been to visit us lately, I really, really recommend you come. As you were discussing a minute ago, most of the distilleries book up about 2 or 3 months in advance, and we offer tastings 7 days a week. Tastings and cocktail classes. So if you have somebody that comes in town who wants a last-minute tasting, you can come down. We have an entire floor that's dedicated to the bourbon industry. You can tour that and then do a tasting or cocktail making class. And so, I mean, I'm not comparing it to visiting Bean.
I've been there though. I've been
good.
the class. We want to tell people about the production of what maybe a man named Steve does on a regular basis for the people with his sampling on the second floor.
Oh, Steve. Yeah, thank you. I think in this team, I was like, this is Fraser more than I realized.
We have some residency.
And the speakeasy. Yeah, we have a speakeasy. We have a hall of bourbon. We have one of every bottle that's being produced in Kentucky right now on display. All sorts of great things. And then yes, we do the 7 days a week. We do tastings. You can choose different levels of tastings depending on what you're into. And we also do an old-fashioned cocktail class. So you can come and we have like 7 different bitters that you can choose from, and brown sugar, cuban white. It's very, very cool. So I have cards for that if you're interested. And then I'm also running our new bourbon club. So we are using House Bill 415, and as the official start of the Bourbon Trail, we have all these amazing partnerships with these distilleries here in Kentucky, and we want to get these amazing Kentucky bourbons shipped directly to homes of Kentucky residents. So we have partnered, and our first shipment is actually going out on Friday, but it's not too late. And it's Peerless, and it's their oldest and our first. It's the juice that went in the barrel 7 years ago when they opened their distillery here in Louisville. And Caleb, we told him to spare no expense and choose the best stuff, and it is phenomenal. Steve was actually the very first influencer to taste our bourbon, and if you haven't watched his review, please go watch that. And that's it. Did I hit everything?
Yeah.
Thanks, girl.
Yeah.
I feel like I need to give something away though. If we're all giving something away, so can I do that?
Do it.
Okay, great. So come down and let us post you and 3 other people to the Fraser Museum and to one of our either flight tasting classes or cocktail making class. So do you want to do the
Trivia question?
trivia?
No, I was just thinking that was about 8 minutes, but you stay up here as much as you want, though. Sorry, Rick, I took some
But
of
I
your
didn't
time.
drop a single F-bomb.
No, what are you gonna do?
Sorry.
You all do trivia.
Yeah, so trivia question. So whoever gets this one right gets 4 people invited to Fraser Museum, and you can either choose from a cocktail class or from.
All right, I'm gonna do the trivia question.
Okay, great. I thought you were.
So I was the founding board member of the Fraser Museum, deeply involved, so this is a Fraser trivia question. Dang, Mr. Dang. No, that was so inappropriate. Okay, so at the Fraser Museum, this is not bourbon related, this is history related.
We have a very important item at the museum. Chris, come on, big dog. You don't know what it is. Whatever you say, I'm going to say something different. Okay. This is not the trivia question, it's a lead up. What was Teddy Roosevelt's famous line? Walk softly and carry a big stick. What is the big stick?
It's his gun.
Gun.
Okay, no one raised their hand. Bill Reynolds did. He raised 2 hands. So no one has any clue what you're talking about because you were so rude. The big stick is a gun. It's a double-barrel shotgun stacked, made from Holland, England, given to the president with a presidential seal in it, and it's at the Fraser Museum. We bought it for $1 million. It's the single most expensive sporting rifle in the world, And Roosevelt took that to Africa, where he shot the big game that sits in the Smithsonian today. So, Bill Reynolds, you're the winner. Congratulations. Lewis, you came in second, and you don't get anything. You're still the greatest bank president in Kentucky. By the way, Independence Bank, that'll be $400 for this month. Okay. Thank you, Haley. Bourbon Limited at the Fraser Museum. All right, let's keep going.
All right, so I feel like we got 3 more giveaways up here. We have a coaster set. We have a candle that's made to smell like the Basil Hayden Golden Hour cocktail, custom made here in Louisville, Kentucky, and then a front plate so that you can adorn your vehicle or hang it up in your garage, whatever your heart desires. Throw it at somebody that makes you mad. Whatever. Whatever you want to use it for, once it's yours, it's yours. Much like we like you to drink your whiskey, anytime you please. All right, so the question will be, there was a very famous movie that was filmed on the grounds of the James B. Beam Distilling Company. Stripes. Great job.
Ah, there you go. Tom, what do you want? We're running back to you. You want coasters, candle, license plate? Come on, David. You want the license plate?
Done.
Stripes? I didn't know that. That was filmed on campus.
It was, so one piece of it. There's one piece of them coming.
Yeah, the Aunt Jemima when he was. No,
It's still on our bridge. It was on one of the properties where our warehouses are in Clarence.
All right, we have 2 more to go.
2 more to go. All right. Mike Dean, what you got? Give him a trivia question.
How many barrels of bourbon are aging in the state of Kentucky right now?
Raise your hand. Rick Barney. Rick.
Wrong.
It's $125. Who's up? Ed, you're next.
10 million.
No.
Wrong.
Greg.
11. Close, but wrong.
Scott.
14 million.
Not even close.
Wrong.
Between 11 and 14, and he's not close.
12. Wrong. Wrong. This has been in the news all week because we just set a record. 13.5.
Callahan's now.
I will give you a hint.
11.1.
There it is. That is the answer. Would you like candle or coasters?
Perfect.
And I will take one of those cocktail glasses, please.
All right, we're winding down. Before we go to the last trivia, how did Beth do tonight? Thank you for coming in trouble.
Thank you. I appreciate
So
all
let's
that.
take a quick vote. Let's vote on the best presenter we had this year. All other presenters.
I'm standing here.
Raise your hand. Raise your hand if all the other presenters were your favorite. Well, we got some really good ones. I mean, Corky Taylor. So raise your hand if Beth was the second year our favorite. Well, there you go, young lady.
Appreciate it. I'm gonna need that in writing if you could just get somebody to notarize that so that I can hang it in my office and feel special.
Okay, so next year when they come back, yell out your request for what you would like to taste in next November.
Hardin Creek.
Hard's great. Hard.
Anything else?
Tell us about it.
I would love to tell you about Hard's Creek. So Hard's Creek is going to be a new line extension. It's a brand new line of whiskeys that's coming out. Again, underneath the guidance of Freddie No. We're going to see a lot of different levers being pulled in that liquid. It's a very small release that's going to happen. The first 2 that came out were Jacob's Well, which was 15 years old, and then our Colonel James B. Beam, which was 2 years old. They were released side by side so that we can talk about what those levers look like, whether it be the lower fermentation, or the longer fermentation time, the lower distillation proof, whatever it might have been that he pulled on each one of those levers. You're going to have, again, just a showcase of what he's going to be able to do in the process to manipulate the liquid on the back ends. Yes.
Mr. Meredith.
Mr. Ed Comfort and I were on the barrel pick in June with
Fantastic.
Mike Bean, fantastic. But it's remarkable, though, how the 3 barrels, how different they were.
Yes.
Of course, we selected the best one.
Of course.
And but so is there? There's different things that you're talking about tweaking it, and there's other large distilleries that talk about. You all do not rotate your barrels.
We do not. When he's talking about the 11.4 on our campuses, we have about 5.5 million of those.
But is there a certain warehouse? I mean, you talk about branding. You could come out with another brand that's Warehouse of JJ and Road Z or something like that. Is there something like that in the works potential?
So not necessarily where we're going to talk about a specific warehouse. Now, like when the Baker's single barrels came out, there were only 35 across the United States. The majority of those came out of Warehouse A. That just happened to be where they came from. So you're going to maybe see things like that happen in the future.
A lot of them happen to come from one particular area. But as far as I know, we don't have one specific. Our warehouses are going through ebbs and flows right now. Our oldest warehouse was built in 1938. It's Warehouse D. It's up on stilts. Nothing is being aged in there right now because we're trying to get it back to a preserved state. But we've built warehouses. They just keep getting bigger. You know, we're at 59,000 barrels is the height of what we can do because otherwise it's not within regulation. Also 7 stories tall. So we're going to continue building them. You're still going to see larger and larger warehouses. Warehouse K is where the experience happens for Knob Creek, but those barrels are going to come from a few different warehouses coming from that center cut of the warehouse.
Did you say the tallest is 7 stories?
7 stories tall,
I was
yes.
going to ask that question. Thank you.
Last trivia question. Why is it only 7 stories tall?
State regulation for fire?
Did you want the coasters?
Yeah, I'll take. Is this?
You said no liquid. You're the one that said that.
It's my freaking club. I paid for it.
You make the damn rules. It's all
Oh, come
you.
on. I'm just joking. Okay. The last trivia question for the coasters. All right.
What year was I born? Wait, what was it? Wrong. Raise your damn hands. That's adorable. Got it.
Come on, lady. All right. I'm going to tell you a quick story.
But thank you for the compliments.
So I'm going to tell you a quick story. A good friend of ours, Greg Cossey, tells a story about his father and Booker No, true story, on campus. And Mr. Cossey and Mr. Booker No years ago sit down, and Booker comes out with a bottle of bourbon. I don't know what the brand was. Opens up a Booker's, a new one, takes the top, throws it in the bush. He goes, "We won't need that anymore, will we?" That's a true story, and I love that story. Beth, you're the all-time greatest. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, y'all.
Thanks, everybody. All right.
Cheers.
Hey, in all seriousness, have a very safe, prosperous Thanksgiving. You're blessed, and have a great Christmas and Hanukkah, whatever you celebrate, but be very happy for what we have. We're blessed. Thanks.
Cheers.
Well, housekeeping, one more thing. Mike Bean.
Let's thank our lovely servers and make sure you tip them, and bartenders, make sure you tip them very, very well. Thank you, Chris, for hosting and providing all the bourbon. I can officially tell you they have some really good bourbon. It might not be on the shelves yet, but I have sold it to them. It is here in the building. So you might have to come back next week, but there was a new release from Basil Hayden that just came out.
There was.
Red wine cast finished. Yep.
She's pretty and tasty.
Yeah. I do want to make one comment. There is a couple other ones that will be coming out. There probably will be a Basil Hayden 10 in the future here. Our partner distillery, Maker's Mark, there's a wood finish that will be here. And I did hear someone, we were talking about rotation. There's only one major distillery in the world that rotates all their barrels, and they just did it, and it's at Maker's Mark. So they rotated 300,000 barrels. You can imagine the painstaking process of that. So
not my job.
Yeah, exactly. But thank you all. Take care of your servers. Thanks, Steve, Chris.
Cheers, Mike Bean.